In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
A stone church built in 1887. German immigrants gave everything to build it. For 150 years, it held weddings, funerals, baptisms. Generations of families filled those pews. Last Sunday, 17 people showed up. Average age, 71. No children, no teenagers, no young families. The pastor looked out at 283 empty seats. He'd served this church for 23 years. After the service, the council met. Same question they'd asked for 2 years. How much longer can we keep the doors open? 6 months. That's the answer. Then the lights go off forever. This isn't one church. This is happening to Lutheran churches across America. 200 closures every year. 5 million members gone in 40 years. And almost nobody is talking about it. Let's put this crisis into perspective. In 1980, the 2 largest Lutheran groups in America had over 8 million members combined. The Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. Together, they were one of the biggest Protestant traditions in the country. Today, barely 3 million members remain. That's a 62% decline in 1 generation. Not over centuries, in just 40 years. But here's what makes this worse. The decline is speeding up. The ELCA started in 1988 with 5.3 million members. Today, they have 2.9 million. They lost 800,000 members in the last decade alone. That's not just people dying of old age. That's people leaving faster than the church can replace them. The Missouri Synod isn't doing better. They dropped from 2.7 million to 1.8 million. Nearly 1 million members are gone. Every single year, about 150 ELCA churches close their doors. The Missouri Synod loses another 50. That's 200 Lutheran churches shutting down every 12 months. 200 communities losing their church. 200 buildings sold or torn down. 200 congregations that thought they'd last forever, gone. And these weren't small, struggling churches from the start. Lutheran churches were everywhere. Every small town across the Midwest had one, sometimes 2 or 3. Lutheran colleges educated hundreds of thousands of students. Lutheran hospitals and nursing homes served millions. This was mainstream American Christianity. Deep roots, major resources, real cultural power. Now it's collapsing. A professor at Wartburg Seminary told me something haunting. In 1990, they had 200 students training to become Lutheran pastors. Today, fewer than 80. And many won't find jobs because there aren't enough churches left to hire them. He said he sometimes wonders if he's teaching the last generation of Lutheran pastors in America. In South Dakota, 2 Lutheran churches that spent 100 years refusing to worship together finally merged. Not because they resolved their differences, because neither could survive alone. The merged church has 17 members. They meet every other week because they can't afford a full-time pastor. One member said, "Our grandparents would be horrified, but we had no choice. Merge or close." Even merged, she doesn't think they'll last 5 more years. The numbers tell one story, but they don't capture what's really being lost. Because this collapse didn't happen by accident. Something broke. Something that held Lutheran churches together for over a century. And it started with the one thing that made them strong in the first place. To understand why Lutheran churches are dying, you need to understand why they thrived for so long. Lutheranism came to America with immigrants. Germans, Swedes, Norwegians, Finns. They brought their faith, their language, and their traditions. They settled mostly in the Midwest, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Wisconsin, the Dakotas. For these immigrants, the Lutheran Church wasn't just a place to worship, it was everything. The church preserved their German language, their Swedish customs, their Norwegian heritage. Being Lutheran meant belonging to a community that shared your background. Churches built schools so children could learn in their native language. They created social clubs, mutual aid societies, cultural organizations. You were born Lutheran, baptized Lutheran, confirmed Lutheran, married Lutheran, buried Lutheran. Leaving the church? That meant leaving your entire community, your identity, your people. For 3 generations, this model worked perfectly. Churches were packed. Colleges thrived. Lutheran institutions had massive influence. Lutheranism became one of the largest Protestant traditions in America. But here's what nobody saw coming. This strength had a fatal flaw hidden inside it. Lutheranism was tied to ethnic identity. German, Swedish, Norwegian. The church and the culture were the same thing. So what happens when that ethnic identity fades? By the mid-1900s, assimilation was complete. 3rd and 4th generation Lutherans spoke English, not German or Swedish. They married outside their ethnic groups. They moved away from tight-knit Lutheran communities. The cultural glue dissolved, and many Lutheran churches had no idea how to be Lutheran without it. The children didn't speak the old language. The grandchildren didn't care about preserving old traditions. The great-grandchildren felt no connection to communities their ancestors built. Suddenly, the Lutheran Church was just another option, one choice among many. When forced to compete on religious merit alone, without the cultural glue holding everything together, Lutheranism started losing. But church leaders didn't panic. Not yet. They believed they could fix this, adapt to changing times, make Lutheranism relevant again. So they tried 2 very different strategies. One group went progressive, the other stayed conservative. Both were convinced they had the right answer. Both were wrong. And what happened next would tear American Lutheranism apart. In 1988, 3 Lutheran groups merged to form the ELCA, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. It was supposed to create a stronger, unified voice. Instead, it accelerated the collapse. From the beginning, the LCA leaned progressive. They emphasized social justice, inclusivity, engaging with modern culture. Leaders believed this would attract younger generations. Then came 2009, the watershed moment. The ELCA voted to allow same-sex relationships in churches. They allowed partnered gay and lesbian individuals to serve as pastors. The vote was close. 68% in favor, 32% opposed. It split the denomination in half. Conservative members felt betrayed. They believed leadership had abandoned biblical authority. Over the next decade, roughly 600 congregations left. They formed a new group called the North American Lutheran Church. Thousands more members simply walked away from Lutheranism entirely. But here's the crucial part. The strategy didn't work. The LCA went progressive to attract younger, liberal Christians. Those people never showed up. Young progressives weren't looking for a progressive Lutheran church. If they wanted religion at all, they chose non-denominational churches. Or they stopped attending entirely. Progressive theology didn't make the LCA grow. It just pushed out traditional members. And nobody replaced them. The LCA made a massive bet. They lost. Membership has declined every single year since 2009. The losses are getting faster, not slower. Now, you might think the conservative Lutherans would be thriving. The Missouri Synod held the line. They opposed women's ordination. They maintained biblical authority. They rejected every progressive shift. You'd be wrong. The Missouri Synod is declining almost as fast. Why? Because being conservative wasn't enough either. Many Missouri Synod churches got stuck in the 1950s. Same liturgy done the exact same way. Hymns from centuries ago. Resistance to any contemporary music or worship style. This preserved Lutheran identity, but it made churches feel like museums. Visitors described them as cold, formal, unwelcoming to anyone who didn't already know the traditions. The Missouri Synod also became insular. focused on being the faithful remnant, protecting true Lutheranism while everyone else compromised. Great for identity, terrible for reaching new people. One Missouri Synod pastor admitted it plainly. We got so focused on being distinctly Lutheran that we forgot how to reach people who aren't already Lutheran. We preserved the faith but lost the mission. Sarah grew up ELCA Lutheran in Minnesota, baptized as an infant, confirmed at 14. She loved her church. In college, she drifted away. No crisis, no conflict. Church just stopped feeling relevant. After graduation, she visited a few Lutheran churches. They were mostly elderly. The music felt outdated. Nobody her age was there. She told me, "I don't have anything against Lutheranism. I just don't see what it offers that I can't get elsewhere." She attends a non-denominational megachurch now. Occasionally. She doesn't call herself Lutheran anymore. Probably never will again. The progressive strategy failed. The conservative strategy failed. But not for the reasons most people think. The fight between progressive and conservative missed the point entirely. Both sides were arguing about theology, while the real problems went ignored. Here's what actually killed American Lutheranism. First, denominational loyalty is dead. For generations, people stayed Lutheran because their family was Lutheran. Their neighbors were Lutheran. Their town was Lutheran. That social pressure kept people in pews even when they weren't fully committed. That's gone now. Younger Americans don't think about denominations at all. They choose churches based on worship style, preaching quality, kids' programs, whether they feel welcomed. Lutheran, Baptist, Presbyterian? They don't care. Both the ELCA and Missouri Synod spent enormous energy fighting over what it means to be properly Lutheran. Meanwhile, the people they needed to reach didn't care about being Lutheran at all. Second, Lutheran worship became inaccessible. Lutheran services are highly liturgical, formal, structured. For people raised in it, the tradition feels beautiful and meaningful. For outsiders, it's intimidating, confusing, hard to follow. Modern Americans want informal worship, emotional connection, music they recognize, preaching that feels practical. Lutheran liturgy offers depth and history, but it doesn't offer easy entry points. In a culture that values feeling over tradition, that's a death sentence. Third, Lutherans forgot their mission. Ask a Lutheran what Lutheranism is about. They'll explain theology, justification by faith, the sacraments, law and gospel. Ask what Lutherans are doing in the world. The answer gets fuzzy. Social services? Sure. Food banks and soup kitchens. But lots of groups do that. Without a clear, compelling mission, institutions die, no matter how good the theology. The ELCA focused on social justice causes. The Missouri Synod focused on doctrinal purity. Neither focused on making disciples. Both protected their version of Lutheranism. Neither grew the church. One seminary professor put it bluntly, "We're training pastors for a church that's disappearing." The theological debates were symptoms. The real disease was irrelevance. And here's the terrifying part. What happened to Lutherans is already happening to other denominations, Presbyterians, Methodists, Episcopalians. The Lutheran collapse isn't unique. It's just ahead of schedule, and most churches have no idea they're next. Here's what nobody wants to admit. American Lutheranism will not recover. The demographic math doesn't work. The cultural conditions that built ethnic churches are gone forever. The institutional infrastructure is crumbling too fast to save. Best case, Lutheranism stabilizes around 2 million members by 2040, a smaller, more committed remnant. Churches that successfully shift from ethnic identity to genuine mission. Worst case, functional extinction within 30 years. More seminaries will close. Lutheran colleges will drop their religious identity to survive. Hundreds more beautiful stone buildings will become apartments and breweries. But here's why this matters beyond Lutheranism. Every ethnic church in America is on the same clock. First generation thrives. Second generation holds. Third generation struggles. Fourth generation collapses. Every denomination built on tradition instead of mission faces the same fate. The Methodists are already there. The Presbyterians are close behind. The Episcopalians are further along. The Lutheran collapse isn't a Lutheran problem. It's a warning. Every church is one generation from extinction. Every denomination is 3 generations from irrelevance. The question isn't whether your church will face this crisis. The question is whether you'll see it coming in time. The Lutherans didn't, and now 200 churches close every year. 5 million members gone. A tradition that survived the Reformation, shaped Protestantism, and built the American Midwest is fading into history. The lights are going off, one church at a time.